Hello everyone. Hello everyone and welcome to Console Corner. My name is Blue. I'm your host and the PCL is over. The first season of the very first ever Paladins Console League. It's the first time we've had a league. There was no PCS. There was no monthly finals. None of that. 4 teams on each division in each region, EU and NA, Xbox and PS4. And it was awesome. I loved it. I hope you guys loved it as well, as a spectator and as the players as well that were part of the league. It was 7 weeks long. There was exactly 100 games played. One team went undefeated. That was Flashpoint. You could say Vex went undefeated as well, but I didn't count that because they dropped 2 maps. They ultimately went 12-2, and Flashpoint went 12-0. So that's why I called them the only undefeated team. But Vex also went undefeated. In reality, in the set-wise, they went 6-0 as well. Let's go quickly. The Week 6 recap. OTP versus Vexed. 2-0 towards Vexed in that one. Welsh on the Canessa in Game 1 really stood out to me. I think it was Week 4 and Week 5 where he took a break. I guess he had family things to do, or he went on vacation or something close to that. I can't really remember why, but Yui was in place for him for those 2 weeks, and then there was another 2 weeks where Yui played in place of Narc. So full lineup for the first time in a couple weeks for Vexed, and they 2-0'd OTP. OTP fell 0-6 this season. Unfortunately, they were unable to find a win. They did find 2 map wins this season, once against Vexed before and once against Radiant. So that was their only impressive marks this season. Next, Game 2, the Androxus and Leanne with Welsh and World on it. It seemed a little slow to start, but they picked up as the tanks played great the entire match. Radiant versus Viral, 2-0 in the favor of Radiant. Smutney showed why he is the league leader in heals by putting out massive heals. Both games with Ying as well. So Ying really putting out a lot of heals and being one of the top supports picked right now. Flashpoint over Brutal Fissure, 2-0 in favor of Flashpoint, of course, after I just told you they went undefeated. I guess they were, trying some new things to prepare maybe for HRX. Harvey played his Pip. I've heard a lot about Harvey's Pip, but this was the first time he played Pip in the PCL, so that was interesting to watch. And Good Lad on Andro was new to me because we've never seen Good Lad play the Andro. We've seen him play the Zin, we've seen him play the Vivian, and we've seen him play the Buck, and he dominated in all 3. Before that, he was a frontline player for them until he has moved to the damage role. After the spring LAN, I think the reason why we never saw him on Androxus is because Androxus was never really good or considered meta at the moment. But now that he is, I guess Good Lad's going to be the Andro player. That, I guess it was new to me because I thought maybe, oh yeah, Prosper is usually the hit scan. Maybe he's going to play Andro. But it turns out it's going to be Good Lad. And he's a dominant Andro, as I should say. Cyclone closes their season out by 2-0ing YCTG. Tito absolutely dominated on his Vivian in the first game. And then on the second game, he played Andro, where he got a Quadra, I think, to cap the point in the second round and secure that. Both teams took turns playing Sky for the first time this season. Sky was picked. Sky won Game 1 as Donka played it for Cyclone. And then Game 2, Ernest Deegan took the Sky and was doing fairly well on it, but unfortunately they took the loss there. So Sky took an L. Lex, Maeve, and Shaolin still only champs to not be picked the entire season. I know I dropped a bunch of stats the other day. If you guys ever want stats again, or you lost track, or you weren't online when I was dropping those on Twitter, just let me know and I'll send them to you. All the league leaderboards, the champ stats, map stats, all of that. I know a lot of people have been saying like, oh, well, he's just doing it for fun, blah, blah, blah. I mean, these stats could actually help people. I mean, if you're smart and you're going to LAN, you can realize that Flashpoint banned the same map all season. 6 weeks of play means they get 6 map bans, and all 6 were on Frog Isle. Vex did the same thing by banning Fish Market all 6 weeks as well. Some of the other teams also started banning depending on what they thought the other team was strong on, and some guessed right and some didn't. If you look at the stats, they banned, oh, we're going to ban this map against this team because they're good on it. But then you look at the other team and it's like they never picked that map. So there you go. Baldy Bunch finds their first win this season against Happy Battle Cats, who they 2-0'd. Unfortunately, Happy Battlecats were forced to use subs, while Baldy's subs were able to overcome the non-chemistry hump more easily. Both teams were playing with subs. Richie actually left Baldy Bunch to join Onii-Chaners for their last week because of the Swiper, or because of Swiper not being able to play for Onii-Chaners, and we'll get into that in a little bit. Game Over beats Warm Up 2-0 after Business on Strix. Game 1 tried to keep it close, but unfortunately it was no match ultimately for Galaxy and Peacekeeper. I think Galaxy and Peacekeeper really work well together. They both can play the same champs, and they both have their own champs that they can play that the other one cannot as well. So I think that DPS combo right there really works well. And Business, usually a frontline main, was playing the Strix. He did impress me a little bit towards the beginning of the game on Splitstone Quarry there. He was playing fairly well, and he was kind of doing a lot for his team with that Strix, but ultimately he wasn't enough to match with Galaxy and Peacekeeper on the other end. All right, let's go into quickly. I know you guys really want to hear my opinions on the Onslaught versus Team Cryptik and the Onii-Chaners versus Elevate matchup. So let's get into it. Before we go into it though, I want to talk about the beginning of the season. I thought Onslaught was going to be your for sure LAN qualifier, and on the PS4 NA side, I thought Elevate was going to be your LAN qualifier, and Elevate was the #1 team in all divisions, in my opinion, at the beginning of the season before Week 1 play. Week 1 and Week 2 kind of like said, okay, Onii-Chaners, they seem a little serious. And so does, at the time they were Kirsty's Hands, but Team Cryptik. And I said, okay, Week 3 is going to determine for me, after Week 3, that's halfway through the season, I can readjust my LAN predictions here. And I did according. I said, okay, Onslaught is still the dominant team here. We had to wait for Week 4 for that one because the Hurricane and the postponed match. But I said, okay, Onslaught just 2-0'd Cryptik. So maybe Cryptik is not as far advanced as we seem to thought they were or think they were at that moment. And then on the other side, Onii-Chaners beats Elevate 2-1, and they look dominant in the 2 games that they won. And I said, okay, Onii-Chaners are a real team. Like, Swiper moved over here for this, and this team is looking really good. It's I'm not used to seeing Tommy playing the front line, but it's okay. I like it. It's good. So then I said, okay, my LAN qualifiers. If this happens this way, Onii-Chaners is going. There's a small chance that Elevate can still go. Then on the other side, I say, okay, Onslaught's still my LAN qualifier. Now, towards the end of the season, it turns out it's Onslaught and Elevate. Now, I still would have picked Onii-Chaners to beat Elevate if they had Swiper, but it was a slim chance. They still had the chance to beat them, but that's the way it's going to go. Let's start off with Onslaught versus Team Cryptik. Let's go over. I've got draft graphics here. Game 1, okay, so let's talk about this. Frog Isle was the map. Now, Onslaught banned Ice Mines and Cryptik banned Bright Marsh. Cryptik, I think, had the best ban, or I think Onslaught had the best ban here. They know Cryptik's not going to take them to Ice Mines, and they know that they believe that they are stronger on all the other maps than Cryptik, except for maybe Ascension Peak, but they don't really like that map. Cryptik kind of likes that map from what we've seen in the past, but they didn't really like it against certain matchups, so they banned it, I think once or twice. Here they are banning Bright Marsh. They said, okay, we don't want Onslaught to take us to Bright Marsh. They're pretty good on Bright Marsh. We don't want to have to do that. Onslaught said, I don't care what map we play on, basically. We're going to ban Ice Mines. You can take us anywhere else. Neither team expect each other to take their opponent to Frozen Guard. So Frozen Guard was never banned or played, I think, in the PCL at all. So that was interesting to see if we can see any. So first match, Onslaught has on Frog Isle first pick. The bans were Kinessa and Torvald on the side of Onslaught and Strix Drogos on the side of Cryptik. And I understand we banned Kinessa first because that's, in my theory, the best sniper on Frog Isle. And so, Cryptik's like, okay, Cool Matt is a really good Strix. Skeppy can also play Strix. If they ban Kinessa, we have to ban Strix. So they ban the Strix. Torvald is a really strong champion right now. It's actually the #1 ban champ in the PCL of all season. So they banned Torvald because he's strong, and they don't really want to first pick that. And then Drogoz gets banned on the other side because Skeppy's a really good Drogoz, and Drogoz is really strong on Frog. So those are all good bans and perfectly normal for me for this matchup with these specific players on this map. Now, the draft is where it gets very interesting. Cryptik actually won this game, and I think it was because of the Talus and the Khan combo. They really had a lot going for them with that. You know, the Khan and Talus could run on their own. The Khan could help the Talus sustain even longer. Talus has that great escape to get out of the fights as well. And on the other side, you have a Vivian who was picked 4th for Onslaught into the Talus. So that Talus is able to burn that Vivian faster than most flanks because he doesn't have to worry about that shield. Especially if Khan's running alongside him, because then he'll get the damage buff. He has Antediluvian in his loadout for Cauterize automatically, and then he can run Wrecker as his red item, and he can just dumpster the Vivian. The other thing is that he can also provide more DPS towards the Ruckus after he gets rid of the Vivian. Now, the Leanne, of course, can deal with Talus because she is a very good champ to deal with other flanks. With her 2 auto aims, being able to run Death and Taxes so that 90% cauterizes there off the start. But the problem with that is that if she is focusing on Talus, who's going to have Khan with her, then there's really no one to poke out the Victor and the Saris, who are just sitting in the back. You know, they have the Vivian and the Leanne combo. You know, those two are kind of staying back. If Leanne pushes forward, then she's leaving Vivian and Ying exposed to the Talus and the Khan. If Leanne stays back with the Vivian and the Ying so that the Talus and the Khan have a little bit of a harder time, then Victor is just able to babysit the Saris with no pressure being pushed upon them and can just dump damage into the Ashe and the Ruckus himself. And he was running, Shrapnel is banned, so he was running the Burst card. And I truly believe that the Burst card is actually a viable card, even if Shrapnel wasn't banned in certain situations. Now, maybe in this situation, I would still use Shrapnel if it wasn't banned, but I think the Burst card is really good. You're able to poke out damages from a long range. You're able to dump damage into tanks, and you can more precisely, especially with the aim settings update, be able to, you know, hit your shots in the heads as well. I know I played the Gunnery Victor in a ranked game against a Strix on Splitstone, and I was able to head glitch and poke out a Strix better than he was able to poke out me. Now, maybe that was because I'm a better player than that Strix player, but I think it goes with kind of the legendary that I was using. Another thing was, you know, like I said, Victor was able to babysit the Saris with no push from the Viv or the Leanne. If the Leanne did push their backline, then the Vivian would be exposed to the Talus and the Khan. Now, another thing and the last thing for this match that I think was a big factor was that Skeppy and Wonderful, they didn't look like their normal selves. Skeppy was pushing very hard and foolishly at many times in the game, especially when they were trying to zone. So he got caught out of position. He got caught with no cooldowns on his Leanne, and he did have some good moments as well. I specifically remember, I forgot to get the clips. I'm sorry. I'll have them another time, where he hits an ultimate from on defense. He hits an ultimate through 2 people all the way to the back line to get someone. So that was very impressive. But other than that, he really didn't look like himself. Wonderful as well didn't look like himself, especially on his #1 champion, or what we thought was his #1 champion for the longest time, Ruckus. You know, there most notably was the ultimate that came out of him when they were trying to zone them. The ultimate came out. I think there was only 2 or 3 enemies in his sight, and they were able to line of sight it. So that ultimate, to me, was a waste, and I think Cryptik were able to retake the point because of that, and no pressure from having to worry about his ultimate coming out in a bigger team fight. Moving to game 2 here. We can look at the draft here. Now, Onslaught won game 2 and game 3. They are going to be your HRX representative or your Xbox NA representative at HRX. Now, game 2, I think Onslaught did a better job drafting here. And the reason why is because they're on Stone Keep. They banned Torvald and Khan. Of course, they're going to ban Torvald again. And in game 3, they get second pick for the first time in this series. They first picked game 1 and game 2. So game 3 is really where they outdrafted Cryptik, and it's where I, totally think that Onslaught has one of the best drafting minds that there is in all of Paladins, not only console, but across PC and console. So they take Talus first after banning Torvald and Khan. So, of course, you know, they're going to take Talus first if he's open, so they don't want to give the other team Torvald. Unfortunately, they won't get Torvald with the Talus, which is fine because they're on Stone Keep, because they're on one of their best maps. On the other side of things, you have Willow and Drogo's ban. Now, for Cryptik, I think these are really good bans for anybody, Willow and Drogo's. Unfortunately, if you've done your homework and you've watched Onslaught's VODs before, when they play on Stone Keep, they go after their hit scans most of the time. They've drafted a Drogos with 1 or 2 hit scans on this map in a few games. The other games, they've drafted a Willow and 1 or 2 hit scans in this game. They prioritize their hit scans pretty late in the draft because the Willow and the Drogos should be prioritized more or before your hit scans. But if they can't get Willow or Drogos, they're fine. They'll go 1 or 2 hit scans and they'll be perfectly fine. You ban Willow and you ban Drogos, so now you're forced to have them play Talus, and they do just that. They grab Talus. And then on the other side, you grab Leanne, which is a great pick, great first pick. You grab Leanne and Inara, so they won't be able to put that Cauterize from Leanne's Death and Taxes into your Inara. And then on the other side, you have Ruckus, which into Leanne is a little shaky, but I don't think Leanne's the best wrecker there is. Now, once they picked the Vivian, I felt a little pain for that Ruckus. Towards the end of the draft, you realize, okay, we have Ruckus, they have a Leanne and a Vivian, so we need something that can still shield our team, still be kind of a sustained damage reduction tank, but not be hit hard by any sapper rounds or any wreckers. So they go with Ashe, which I think is a great tank right now in the meta because of this, because other tanks get hit so hard from sapper rounds Vivian and from Death and Taxes Leanne and from some other options as well. I think the Fernando was a really good pick from Cryptik, but I think the problem with that is that you have the Tyra. They're able to mark them and hunt them down even faster, especially when you have a Grover. So that upfront battle with Ashe, Fernando, and Grover and Inara, that's going to be a big fight. You got Ruckus on the side as well. I think it allowed Skeppy to have Talus was a big problem in itself. Leanne has to sit back with that Vivian again, and of course the same problem happens in game. The same problem will happen for Cryptik in Game 2, which was the problem for Onslaught in Game 1. If that Leanne has to sit back and protect the Vivian from the Talus, then who is going to be the aggressor? Who's going to get in their backline? And the answer is nothing, because what happened the first game? They sent a Talus with the Khan to dive their backline against a Vivian and a Leanne. The Vivian can deal with them pretty easily, except for the Talus, who counters her, and the Leanne can counter the Talus. But the problem is no one's diving their backline, so the Saris was healing for free with the Victor dumping damage. In this case, you have Tyra, who can mark these 2 sustain tanks and the Grover, who has the Ashe there with her and has the Ying free healing the entire time. And then you have Ruckus diving with Talus, which gets countered by Vivian, but if Talus is melting Vivian, there's no problem there. This allowed Skeppy to have, this allowed Wonderful to be patient, or he was more patient this game, and he was allowed to dominate on his Ruckus. It seems he figured out what he was doing incorrectly in Game 1, and he did the opposite in Game 2. He had beautiful ults in this game. He took keep every time. He zoned them out perfectly, dove the backline when he needed to, and he just did what he needed to do on the Ruckus. And Skeppy did the same thing as well. He calmed down and did his job as the Talus, dove the backline, poked out the Vivian, did his job with the Leanne as well with help from Wonderful. So that was good from Onslaught there in Game 2. Moving on to Game 3, we have Onslaught being the second pick this time, and this is where it gets really good. This is where I'd say their draft mind is incredible. So, in Game 1 and Game 2, Onslaught has first pick both times. What do? They ban Torvald. Whether they banned him first or second, it doesn't matter. They banned Torvald. Whoever wins this game goes to HRX. So, you would think that Cryptik would ban Torvald. If Onslaught didn't, they banned Drogos. That's a good ban. Next, Cryptik bans Khan. That's a good ban, usually, but Onslaught's not going to play Khan. They've only played Khan like once or twice this season. Remember, you have to do your homework. If you can force them to pick Khan, then you force them to go double tank. And going double tank with the Khan sometimes for Onslaught doesn't work out. They've only ran Khan once or twice this season. Wonderful, no offense, has been looking a little lackluster on his tanks. Game 1 with his Ruckus, a little lackluster. The week before this, week 5, he played a tank. It looked a little lackluster. He's been on the DPS for a long time since he's had to play tanks or front lines as normally as he is right now. So why are you banning Khan against this team? It's the same problem that Vexed had against Onslaught at the summer finals. They're wasting a ban against someone that they don't do their homework for. Yes, Khan is a really strong character. Yes, Khan can change team fights. Yes, Khan's ultimate is amazing. But the problem is that this team doesn't normally run Khan. Okay? And when they do, they don't look as good because they don't normally run Khan. So they're not normally practicing with Khan. Things like this need to be done. Your homework needs to be done. You want to go to LAN, you need to do this kind of homework. So they banned Khan and they banned Talus as well. Talus is a good ban. But did you notice what the other team banned? They banned Willow. Okay? Onslaught bans Willow. So they ban Willow, and then your second ban is Talus, which means Torvald is open. So, I'm sorry. Torvald is open. Yes. So you ban, that is why I'm getting mixed up here. Sorry. So, Cryptik doesn't ban Khan. Sorry. They ban Khan themselves because they want the Torvald open. They ban Talus because you have first pick. SoldierBot is really good at playing Talus, so you don't want them to get Talus. So instead, you first pick a Nara. Now, Koala, I think, it seems like he can only play a Nara. You've grabbed a Nara for him every game, and I don't remember the last time that I watched Koala play anything but a Nara. I think it was like week 3, or I'm sorry, week 2 or 3. One of those weeks, I think, is the last time I saw you, Koala, not play a Nara. Yes, sorry. So they banned Khan. Now you have to think as Cryptik, okay, they're banning Khan because they don't want us to have Khan, so we're going to ban Willow. No, I would have allowed them to have Willow because I don't want them to have Torvald. And if they're not, and if we don't ban Torvald, I'm going to take Torvald. So they first pick a Nara, and this is where it gets brilliant. So Onslaught, second pick, is going to pick Torvald. So they know that they are going to pick Torvald. So what is Torvald's biggest problem? Especially if he's running around with a flank, is the Vivian. Sitting in backlines waiting for Torvalds to melt bubbles and apply cauterize at the same time. So what do? They ban Vivian. I mean, they draft Vivian and Torvald at the same time. There you go. That is superior drafting right there. And I say that's superior because their next pick for Cryptik is Leanne Xin. Xin is not that great on Wrecker. Xin is going to have to dive the back line against a Ying and a Barrack and a Vivian. And if he's fighting a Vivian, he's either going to have to take a while to fight that Vivian, or he's going to lose that fight because she's going to pop her shield and kill him faster than he can kill her with a shield up. And I don't think Leanne is the best with Wrecker, especially if you have a Torvald. Yes, she's good with Wrecker because she has 90% caught in death and taxes, but I truly believe that Vivian is the tank, is the Torvald and Khan shredder. Okay, and there's no Khan being drafted in this game because he's banned, so she doesn't have to worry about that. She can just babysit Ying, wait for Xin to come over there and just mess him up. And if she's shooting at Anara on point, she's applying cauterize in a burst matter. And if the Ruckus goes there too, he's going to get messed up by Vivian, along with Barrack, who can run Tinkering and just dump damage into the Ruckus. Or you can go Hair Trigger and supply bursts amount of cauterize against the Anara as well. Meanwhile, you have Torvald and Buck running around like Mongoloids, bubbling Buck like crazy. And guess what? If you did your homework, you would realize that Skeppy, no matter what the frickin' meta is a monster on Buck on Jag Falls. So, there you go. That is booyah. There it is. So, This match was absolutely dominated by Skeppy's Buck with Torv bubbles just coming out left and right. At the very beginning of the game, he dove the back line, killed Saris, then Inara, then Leanne, and then Zin for a quadra kill. And he would have killed Ruckus for the pentakill if it weren't for him having to reload, and his teammate killed him anyways. So, there you go. Inara was no match for the Vivian Barrack, dumping damage into her the entire match. And Zin was not able to disrupt the backline with a Vivian sitting there and with Barrack as well. Barrack is very good at holding down line of sights, entry points, and doorways. So that was very difficult for Zin to maneuver in the backline when his own backline was getting destroyed by Buck with a Torvald. Let's move on here to Onii-Chaners versus Elevate. So Elevate has first pick game 1. They go to Stone Keep. Again, these teams have played Stone Keep quite often. I think it was every week for each one of them. The bans were Torvald and Vivian for Elevate. This goes to say, if you're going to ban Torvald and you know that your team is going to pick Ruckus, you want to ban Vivian. Even if the other team gets Leanne, it's still viable because her Wrecker is not as detrimental as Vivian's Saparounds or Opportunity and Chaos with Wrecker. And then on the other side, Onii-Chaners bans Androxus and Talus. Now Talus, you have GR, he's a really good Talus player, and then you have SJP, who's a really good Androxus player. So both these bans are really good bans, especially since they're really good in the meta. So I think they banned Vivian because they knew they were going to take Ruckus, and I think they banned Torvald because they didn't want the other team to have Torvald, and they were going to take Ruckus. And it's not very common to run Torvald Ruckus because you have no main shield and you have no sustain tank, really. So they first pick Leanne. That's a really good pick. On the other side, they take Con Cassie. Now, I think this is where Onii-Chaners really took a hit in their draft. Obviously, we can tell that Swiper, and I've been told in the past as well, that Swiper, who wasn't able to play in this matchup, was their draft caller, or he was the drafter. So I think when they saw Khan still available on the board, they kind of were like, panicking that they had to pick Khan, so they did, and they took Cassie with it as well. Now Richie is filling in for Swiper, just keep in mind, so he has to play the Cassie. So I talked with them, and I said, who's the other Cassie player if it's not going to be Richie? And they said it would be Boom. Boom, unfortunately, was playing Makoa. Neil was playing the Grover, and Tommy was on the Strix. Now, this, in theory, looks like a good lineup, but at the same time, I think they wanted to run triple DPS, and when they saw Khan available and took it, it kind of ruined that plan A. So they had to move to plan B, which was go double frontline. Here's the problem where I think this team made the mistake of both games, game 1 and game 2. You lose Swiper. Swiper was playing your flanks. Swiper can play your hit scans as well. Tommy can play your snipers, but you've had him on tank, and he can play your hit scans as well, which he's done in the past. But you've had him on frontline throughout the entire season. When you solo tanked, you still had Tommy on frontline. You moved Boom over to some of the DPS roles when you needed him to, but he played the tanks as well, unless it was a DPS character that the other Shutter had to play, like a Willow, which you would have put the other Shutter on like you have all season. And then he would also flex to your tanks. Then you have Swiper, who just strictly plays your DPS players, and Neil, who strictly, or Wear the Guap, who strictly plays your support players, your support champions. I think this is where the problem happened. I think they should have taken a flank, something that Richie can play. Zin was on the board. Buck was on the board, and we just saw Buck work with Onslaught. Even though they had the Torvald, I think it could have disrupted the backline enough for Richie to get some appeal from it for the rest of this team. Tommy did amazing on the Strix because he's a dominant hit scan, and he's a great Strix and great Kinessa player. The problem here is that you guys beat Elevate in week 3 with your drafts that you were using all season, with your roles that you were playing all season. And then here you are just straying away from that. If it's not broke, don't fix it. Yes, you have Richie instead of Swiper, but Richie can play some of the things that Swiper can already play. And I talked about this the week before on Console Corner. You need to bring someone in that can make sure that you guys can stay the same roles and keep the same momentum and keep the same game plan. And they did that. They brought in Richie. He can do that. He fits that position well of what I was talking about in the last Console Corner episode before Week 6's games. And then you bring him in and you totally throw it off. Now, unfortunately, Tommy provided loads of DPS, but being dove on by the Ruckus didn't help him. And the defense side of things, Onii-Chaners left Makoa alone on the low ground to contest the payload while the rest of the team took the high ground. They didn't need to take the high ground because Elevate was not trying to contest them for the high ground. Drogos wasn't even going up there. You got a Strix and a Cassie. He's not going to go up there. Instead, he stayed down low with his team, and he just played the poke game. You saw him. He was standing behind a wall. He'd come out behind. After he hears Strix gun go off, he knows, okay, I've got a second until he's going to shoot again. So he pokes out, shoots a spit, hits the spit, bounces people around, goes back behind the wall. And he shoots other people where he can still poke in and out of the wall along with his Leanne and his Ruckus. He really only pushed and got aggressive when the Ruckus got aggressive as well, which provided him a little bit of breathing room because they got a big old Ruckus coming at their face. So I think they strayed away from their game plan. Elevate, which, by the way, was another thing. The Makoa was grabbing tons of hooks on this Drogos. There was one where he was in flame on the right side. He pulls Drogos into that room, but your entire team, first of all, Drogos is full health. You're not going to kill him that fast. Your whole team is on the high ground. There's no one here to help you. So Makoa's hooks were pretty much useless at that point. Elevate, they take the Stone Keep high ground at the beginning of each round with no contest. Ruckus was allowed to walk all over in there and just shoot rockets and just press all kinds of buttons. No one contested him in there. And then they played the line of sight poke battle beautifully after that every time they captured the point. So I think Onii-Chaners kind of just fell apart because Swiper wasn't there to draft for them. And I think that was their biggest problem. Same thing with Game 2. In Game 2, this is some more superior drafting here. They banned Talos and Torvald on the side of Elevate. You're on Fish Market. So Torvald's a big play. Talos is a big play. And Droxus is a big play, and they ban him. Khan's a big play as well, and they ban him. But as soon as you ban Khan and you pick Leanne, that's a good thing to do. But then the other team goes Genos, Vivian. They grab the Genos. So automatically at this level of play, Genos is primarily only going to be used in a double support where he runs Binary or Luminary. Or if he's the solo healer, it's where he's going to run the Luminary with triple DPS. So you need to prepare for a triple DPS comp. As soon as you see that Genos Vivian come out, you need to prepare for that triple DPS comp. And if you're not going to prepare for the triple DPS, then I don't know what you're doing. They take a Nara Ruckus next. You're picking a Ruckus into a Vivian. What did Elevate do in Game 1? They banned Vivian because they knew they were going to take Ruckus. If you know you're going to take Ruckus here, why not ban Vivian? You can give up the Khan because they are going into this picking a triple DPS. So you have the Leanne and you want to take the Ruckus. You can give up the Khan, I think, in this. Instead of banning Khan, you can ban the Vivian. Because Genos with a Vivian is going to be deadly anyways. And then they take Grover and Kinessa. So you see a Genos being taken. You see them pick Vivian and Strix. And then they take the Cassie. So I think they picked the Kinessa because Tommy's a great Kinessa. But they thought the Kinessa would be able to poke out the Strix. The problem with that is after this draft, you realize, by the time you pick your Kinessa, you realize, oh, they don't have a front line. They have Genos, Vivian, Strix, Cassie. How is a Kinessa and a Leanne going to be able to outpoke a Vivian, Strix, and Cassie who can all stand next to each other with Genos luminaries on them and just shoot you in the forehead from across the map? Yes, Canessa can do the same thing, but she doesn't have the damage boost, and Leanne doesn't have the damage boost. So there you go. That's a big problem right there. Then we look at Ash. I think the Ash pick was an amazing pick. Amazing pick. And I'll tell you why. Even though Fernando's on the board, and, you know, whatever tanks are left, you know, Terminus, Fernando, and Barrick. Look at this. Ash runs solo tank on Fish perfectly with the damage reduction build, an ult with nothing to take her out of her ult. Nothing on the other team is able to grab, stun, or pull her out of her ultimate. Nothing. That was a beautiful pick and a beautiful play. And he has a viable escape. Well, sorry, not he. Ash has a very viable escape on this map as well, which would allow her to get out of line of sight and allow the Genos heal to take its effect. Because remember, he can't burst heal you to full. So I think that was a great play by them and great drafting by them once again. So Vivian and Strix put too much pressure on Ruckus from long range. Ruckus really can't deal with that on Fish Market. And Leanne's not able to keep up with the DPS enemies as they just play poke battle with her all day with Geno Luminary Mark. So I think Onslaught really outdrafted in Game 3, and I think Onii-Chaners were outdrafted by Elevate in Game 2. So, yes, let's look at the season recap here. Where's my season recap paper? Sorry. So season recap. PS4 and A, let's start with them. Elevate was the land pick at the start, not so much in the middle, but then they just qualified for land after beating Onii-Chaners without Swiper. Onii-Chaners were my land pick after week 3, but not after Swiper was taken out of the lineup. Warm-up moves to 0-6. I thought they'd get 1 win this season. I thought they had a really good lineup. But unfortunately, that lineup doesn't matter when you have 10 players all season. So warm-up, kind of like the D-League for people. Garcia built that team so that people could learn, you know, the competitive play style, get into the scene, and be able to, you know, learn some things and be able to advance their careers in the next step afterwards. So he did that with 9 other players because they had 10 people all season. And they had a lot of role swaps. Game over, same thing. Subs all season, but they found a DPS combo between Galaxy and Peacekeeper that really works well. So I think they'll be back with that DPS combo. They need to make some other adjustments too. And I'll be doing some YouTube videos on each team, what they did well and what they should be doing. And even though some of the teams broke up, we'll talk about that as well. PS4 EU, Flashpoint 12-0 in maps, 6-0 in sets. That they were expected to make the LAN, and they did so in dominant fashion. Cyclone, now I thought they'd give Flashpoint a better run for their money this time, and unfortunately they weren't able to. But they brought in Tito, who's 15 years old, by the way, and he has just shown he is among the top players. He's among the top dogs in all of consoles. So shout out to that. I think, you know, working with Tito, he'll be able to you know, do better things in the future as well. Brutal Fissure. Now, they began to look like they were going to give Cyclone trouble for the 2nd place, but ended up flopping after week 3, taking a loss to them. YCTG beat Flashpoint in qualifiers week 1, and after that, they have never been seen again. They were 0-6, and they won 2 maps all season, which were Ice Mines and some of the unorthodox one that people were not prepared for. And they won both maps. Both of those map wins came before the aim settings update. Xbox EU, Vex was expected to make LAN. Yui got tons of playtime due to Narc and Welsh. We talked about that over time. Radiant started off sluggish as well, but they could have had a chance for LAN if they started as strong as they finished. That team was looking very poised and just really dominant towards the end. They actually took a map off of Vex the 2nd time they played them and not the 1st time. So they were looking better towards the end. Team Viral, which was Zimmerframe, by the way, had a slim chance at LAN, but they played great. Unable to force game 3s in any situation. They either won 2-0 or they lost 2-0. They played 12 games exactly, which was the least amount of games you could play all season. I think the only other team to do that was Flashpoint. Onslaught was my land pick. They lost to They lost to Happy Battle Cats. After that, I kind of had doubts about them, but not really. And they were able to close out against Cryptik. Team Cryptik was able to push Onslaught to the edge. They picked up Ryan, which was SoldierBot, and they played great all season. So there should be no shortcomings of them, and they should be able to do even better in the next season. Happy Battle Cats, their lineup probs were all season. They looked really strong when they beat Onslaught, even though Onslaught had a sub at the time. But they had Regan and SoldierBot, who they brought in, and then both of them left. And they fell apart, and the team fell apart towards the end. Baldy Bunch, the lineup changes plus the role swaps all season provided lots of trouble for them, and they lost Richie for week 6, and the meta really hurt them as well. They found one win, though, beating Happy Battle Cats in week 6 as a consolation prize, I guess. But moving on, teams folding. We have a ton of teams folding. So, teams folding, teams that are no longer teams that are confirmed. OTP from Xbox EU, YCTG from PS4 EU. Happy Battle Cats have confirmed that they are folding their team. Warm Up has folded their team as well. And expected teams to fold are Cyclone, Brutal Fissure, Baldy Bunch, and Onii-Chaners. Now, expected to redesign if they do not fold their teams is Cyclone, Brutal Fissure, Onii-Chaners, and Game Over. And teams rumored to redesign are Vexed, Flashpoint, and Radiant. So these teams rumored are to be making some roster changes. Now, the Vexed and Flashpoint, they're going to land, so I really don't know if that's true. And with Radiant, they showed dominance towards the end, even though they still lost to Vexed 2-1. I still think they should stick together, and that lineup is a very core lineup right there. Moving on to your free agents and comeback. Here's your top free agents. To me, for PS4 EU, I only named a couple for each reason. For PS4 EU, you got Centurio, 17th in kills, 11th in assists, 30th in KDA, that's 1.23, and top 5 in objective time and shielding. That is among the PS4 players only. I didn't do full league. Itik as well, he had a 1.13 KDA. He's top 25 in kills, and assists. He's first in objective time amongst the PS4 players. He's 7th in damage as well, and 4th in shielding. Vcon only played week 6 for YCTG, and he is a really good player. So he showed very good play, or very great play in week 6 under YCTG. Unfortunately, they lost 0-2. He's never been in the lineup before, but he showed very good play on his DPS characters. I knew him as a frontline player, though. V-Clax as well. Top 10 for shielding and objective on PS4. With all the other frontlines rumored to be on teams already, he looks to be one of the top 5 PS4 EU frontline players there is. Nasty Pro, also a free agent. He's 3rd in healing on PS4, and he's top 15 in assists. So these are the top EU PS4 free agents as of right now. Now, there are some others along with the other regions I'm going to be saying, but those are just rumored. So some of them are rumored to already be finding teams, so we're not going to talk about those ones. PS4 NA, we have Ralkion. He didn't play in the PCL, though, but he's coming back to play the game. Also is Evil Shadow, Grapple, and Objection. Now, none of them played in the PCL, and none of them have been seen playing the game in a very long time. But they're all rumored to be coming back, along with the Muffin Man. TKO Ghost, I think, is one of the best free agents on PS4 NA. He's a top 25 in damage, and he was top 10 in healing. That is kind of unorthodox for him, considering he's a DPS player, but top 10 in healing. And then for Xbox EU, we have Potent. I think he's the top guy on the Radiant team that I don't know if he was released or if he left, but he posted that he was a free agent. So he was, across Xbox players, he was 6th in kills, 5th in assists. He had a 2.07 KD, and he was the #1 in total damage done over the season. Badge Tiger from OTP is a free agent. He was 4th in assists, 11th in objective, and 3rd in healing. One of the top healers this season, although he did not run Solar Blessing when he plays Furia, and I think that was a big problem between him and his teammates. He runs Cherish, like, religiously. He will not run Solar Blessing. I'm yet to ask him why, but I think I'm going to. Niju is also a tank free agent. Flex, as he would put it. 16th in objective and 6th in shielding, but he's a really good player as well. Remember, I used to say him and Ninja Zen were the best frontline duo. Ninja Zen played week 1 when Niju wasn't available, but then after that, Ninja Zen left, so Niju finished the rest of the season. Xbox NA free agents to look for. Baldy, or OG Comedy on PS4. Excuse me. He was 20th in assists and 8th in healing. He played healer for half the season. Then he moved to frontline, which I knew him as beforehand. Apathy Ace. Now, I think Apathy Ace was the best player on Happy Battle Cats. I think he was really good. Frontline player. He was 18th in objective and 14th in shielding. But he also switched to healer towards the end, so those numbers could have went up if he didn't. Regan is a free agent. He was 23rd in kills, 18th in KDA with a 1.96. The reason why I mentioned those stats is because he only played two or three weeks. He only played 2 weeks. So, technically, he's undefeated, too. Played for Happy Battle Cats, beat Onslaught, and then he played for Baldy Bunch and beat Happy Battle Cats. So he's technically undefeated in the PCL. Himself. Hilltime's also a top free agent on Xbox NA. 17th in kills, 27th in objective time, 22nd in damage, and 13th in shielding. He was flexing all over the place all season. But he did fairly well. So awards and All-Stars. So there will be an All-Stars ballot with only people that played in the PCL. And your roles are whatever roles that you started the PCL with. So if you're a flex, you're a flex. If you're a damage, you're a damage. If you're a tank, you're a tank. That's how it works, okay? Anybody can vote. I think it'll be like a couple days long or maybe 1 week long. That's it. That's all the time we need. But the PCL awards will be given out they'll be announced 1 week before HRX. The PCLC will be voting before that on all of this. They'll be watching all the matches if they haven't all done so either. But these are the awards that are being given out. MVP, best damage, best frontline, best flex, best support. Now, if you make MVP, the winner of the MVP award doesn't necessarily mean they're going to get the best in whatever role that they got. I mean, 90% of the time that could be the factor, but it doesn't have to be. Then there's the best sixth man, which is the best sub. There's the best coach. So if your team had a coach and I didn't know about it, you should tell me. Best rookie of the split. I know a lot of people have been talking about Tito and Atomic AMK from Brutal Fissure, so that's a big award right there, being with a lot of clout around it. Most improved player, which is the comeback player. This means that you haven't played in the past, like, 2 or 3 PCSs, I think. All PCL first team, all PCL second team, and all PCL third teams, just like how the NBA runs their awards. But, yeah, that's that. So, big thing here. I'm not doing my land prediction show now. I think we're going to do one before HRX in my hotel room at HRX. So, Thursday, November 15th. I think we're going to be doing it that day. So, yeah. That's this week's Console Corner. If you missed the VOD, it'll be on YouTube. Don't worry. Podcast tomorrow, if I can squeeze one out by then. Other than that, thanks for joining. Hope you guys had a great show. Or a great time watching. Thank you for joining. And PCL Season 1's over, but HRX is not. I'll be there, so if you're going to be there, come up to me. Remember, I don't know what you look like because I see you in chat. So I see your name in a chat box. But you see my face all the time. So come up and say hi. Whatever. I'm always ready to meet new people. Yeah.